The following program is brought to you by Cloudcast Media, a podcast leader in developing shows to elevate local brands, local stories, and local storytellers. Cloudcast, bringing ears and minds home.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and you're listening to another edition of a Spotlight on the Community Show, and we are thrilled to have a return appearance from Todd Lane. He's the president and CEO of California Coast Credit Union, who for years have absolutely been doing amazing things, not only for their customers, but for the community at large as well. And full disclosure, Todd, I have been a long-time member of California Coast Credit Union. I won't tell you how long, because you'll go, really? You're a fossil, for God's sake, you know. But it's been for quite a while. Todd, good to see you again.
Good seeing you, Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. How's everything with you and the wonderful bride of yours and your family? Everyone doing okay?
Everybody's good. My little 5-year-old just graduated kindergarten.
Oh, my goodness.
We did one of those drive-through graduations, but we're all doing good. So he's on summer break now.
Right, exactly. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's in a French immersion program.
Yeah, he's at French American School on Mount Soledad, and he's fluent in French at 5 years of age, which is odd to me.
Right.
I often tell people, because my wife speaks French.
She does.
Second language for her. And I'm sure that my wife and my little 5-year-old are talking behind my back, telling sharing.
Or they could be doing it in front of your face.
Well, exactly. It all goes over my head. I don't understand a word of it. So
no, it's all good on this thing. So a little bit of background. You joined Cal Coast Credit Union as a CFO in 2009, correct?
I did. I've been here 11 years now. I was up in the L.A. market, credit union market, for 22 years plus prior to that, but really started in credit unions here in San Diego. I'm a native San Diegan, born and raised, Claremont High guy and San Diego State guy, and so I love San Diego. I couldn't wait to get back here, and it's been a great 11 years, and I ain't moving again. Good
for you. Well, we're glad that you're sticking around and so forth on that. I'm an Aztec also for life, many years ago, and certainly this is a wonderful community doing so many things, and especially in the world that you folks have led the efforts. You guys continue to grow on this, and we talked last time. It was and of course that's just absolutely so important to you folks, and you guys live and breathe this, and that's customer service. Internal customer service is equally as important as external, of course, and you guys live that every single day. But then COVID-19 comes, okay, and it wasn't like, can we have a few months of notice on this in a little bit so we can get our sea legs? No, we're just going to sit there and end everything in the mid-March. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, Drew, there is no playbook for what took place. All organizations and banks and credit unions the same. We all have these business contingency plans, but nothing could have prepared us for what happened here. And so we took what I like to call a see and do approach. You see something that needs to be done, and you do it. There's not a lot of planning behind it. You got to have good communication, got to keep our board in lockstep with us and our team, our entire organization, our 600 employees. But you got to make decisions. You got to make them quickly. And, what's great is we are guided by sort of our principle, our purpose as an organization, and that's to help the people that own us. And so when I say own us, I'm not talking about stockholders. I'm talking about the 200,000 members from San Diego and Riverside County. You got to do the right thing by them and the community, because we were born out of the community. We look like the community. We got to serve the community. So those two things really helped us in that see and do approach. Just do the right thing.
Well, and it doesn't happen overnight. Again, we're chatting with Todd Lane, President and CEO of California Coast Credit Union. It's something that this organization has done for many, many years. You can't spin quickly. You can't gain the trust of those 200,000 people just by waving a magic wand. It's something that you do 24/7, 365, and I know I'm preaching to the congregation on this, but I think that's important for people to know, and Cal Coast Credit Union has always done that. It makes you more resilient because you're able to sit there and bob and weave and spin on a dime because of that.
Exactly. It's part of our DNA, Drew. I mean, it's who we are, and it's also a beautiful thing to be local. We can make decisions quickly. We don't need to go to some national office like perhaps a big national bank would have to do. We have our leadership here local, and our board is local, and we can make quick decisions and do what's right based upon what we see happening in our community. We're all part of the community, and we're all very close to our membership. We're all members of the credit union as well.
Right.
And so I think it's a little bit easier in that aspect.
Yeah, without question. Well, as we were talking to our previous guest, who you know very well, Don Wells, Executive Director of Just in Time for Foster Youth, it's all about relationships. It's all about trust and so forth on this. Talk about how you folks, again, talking about spinning on a dime, you had to really jump out there and help the community with the different types of needs and partnering with the city of San Diego and grant makers. And, I mean, all of a sudden there's no one coming into my work. How do I deal with this?
Right. So a lot of things. There's the community aspect, and then there's the membership. So first of all, regarding the membership, we had members call right away when this thing first hit, saying, "Hey, I've lost my job, or they've cut my hours back, or my spouse or somebody I live with in my household, they've had their hours cut back or lost their job, or perhaps furloughed." And so we knew right away that there was a financial need, that we had to help our members out through this. And we have a long history of doing this, whether it's a teacher strike and helping teachers out, or federal employees when they were furloughed because we couldn't pass a budget, or state employees, whatever it happened to be, we respond quickly. So we heard there was a financial need, there was a financial strain in many of our households, and so we had to take care of them. And so we looked at many things. The first thing we looked at was, how can we help those that have loan payments with us? And so we decided to make automatic deferments of loan payments, whether it was an auto loan or a credit card loan or a mortgage loan, for 90 days. We didn't have to have anybody tell us to do that. The Governor Newsom came out later on, and he had a coalition of banks and credit unions sign on and commit to that 90-day deferment. We committed as well, but we were already doing it at that time, so it was an easy commitment.
Right.
So again, it's just part of our DNA to do that. And then we came out with what we call emergency loans, and those emergency loans basically were small dollar loans, $5,000 or less, just to help people get by in that short-term time frame where perhaps they were furloughed. We didn't know how long this thing was going to last, and it's still going on, and we're still doing emergency loans.
Right.
So we had a lot of people come to us and say, "Hey, I need some short-term help. Can you give me a loan?" And we did that, 0% interest. And if they wanted a longer term, we had a very, very low interest rate. So that was really the second part of it. We did that right away too. Then the third part of it was, really looking at the fees. Members during a crisis, people during a crisis, they want access to their money. They don't want you to put barriers in place. They don't want to make it, you don't want to make it hard for them to get at their money. That's when they get ornery, and that's when you really sort of exacerbate the crisis. And so we waived fees. In fact, we just ended that on June 15th. So beginning in March, through March, and then April and May and half of June, we waived fees on member access sort of things, like so for wires and cashier's checks. And when you go to any ATM, there was going to be no fee from California Coast. And we just ended that. Over 40,000 fees that we waived for well in excess of $200,000. So it was just something we did right away just to help them out. You don't want to nickel and dime people when they're experiencing a financial crisis.
And I think what's also important about this, we're chatting with Todd Lane, President and CEO of California Coast Credit Union. I'm Drew Schlossberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of the Spotlight on the Community Show. Access is so important, and we all know, and I have some empathy for the government, of course, that when 44 million people are all of a sudden out of work and trying to go ahead and get some unemployment insurance, and I don't think anyone can deal with that overnight, for God's sake. And we know there's been issues getting checks and all that business. But with you folks, people get a hold of you. And we know because people couldn't get a hold of other folks. Oh, my goodness, what am I going to do? By the way, I have nothing coming in. I do have to pay rent and all that. And we talked about this the last time, too. You guys were accessible. How'd you do that?
Well, we're in the community. We're here. They know who we are.
Right.
And I'm accessible, so I take calls from members.
Right.
When need be. And I always tell people I get two types of consumers or members calling me. It's the ones that are very happy with what we're doing, and then sometimes I get those that are not happy with what we've done.
Right.
And so I help fix that. But just being accessible, we all went and worked remote when this happened.
Right.
But through technology, we were tied into our call center. We were tied into our back office, and we kept our branches open. Keeping our branches open, we still had many members during the height of the pandemic still coming into our branches. And so all of the ways that they can get in touch with us, we kept open and accessible. And in fact, we worked on lowering how long it took for somebody to get hold of us, specifically by phone. So a lot during a crisis, during a pandemic, people tend to call instead of coming into your branches, and they'll email you as well. But you got to pick up the phone quickly, Drew. And it sounds so simple, but it's such a difficult thing to do when your volumes double and triple during a crisis like this. You got to pick up the phone fast. And so we worked on that throughout. And we actually have better response times now than we did pre-pandemic.
Well, and what's so true about that, it's all about blocking and tackling. It's the fundamentals that it's amazing, whether it's in banking, whether it's in my business, the media business, whether it's actually in sports. We all know this. It's like you set up those processes ahead of time, so when this happens, you're going, I wish I would have done this 3 years ago. Well, we've done it, so now we're positioned to do that. One of the things I want to talk about when we come back from break, and I was very impressed with how you handled this yourself personally, Todd, and I know you got a great staff, and be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Bob Scheid and Renee McKee and all the wonderful folks that work in the community relations outreach and the whole entire group of Cal Coast. But I saw you on TV with the absolutely very unfortunate and horrific events that happened in La Mesa, of course, and you guys were impacted by that, and really impressed of how you handled that. I know. You gave $5,000 to the La Mesa Business Disaster Relief Fund and $10,000 to the Black Business Relief Fund grant. Working through the Central San Diego Black Chamber of Commerce. So I want to come back to that. And let people know that you just didn't do this because this happened. You guys have always been outreach, and you don't care if the person's purple polka dot, Martian or whatever. That's something that's been sort of ingrained in you folks ever since Cal Coast, it started. And then when we come back, also from break, besides dealing with that, what can our listeners do to help support your efforts? Obviously becoming members probably wouldn't hurt, but or anything else in that vein. When we return with Todd Lane, he's the president and CEO of California Coast Credit Union. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and you're listening to Spotlight on the Community.
Cloudcast 180. Powerful people, powerful stories, 180 seconds.
Welcome to Cloudcast 180. We're here today with the president and CEO of Father Joe's Villages. Welcome to Deacon Jim Vargas.
Thank you, Charles. Good to be with you.
We have 3 minutes. Let's hit it fast and furiously. We're going to talk this morning with you about San Diego being a very expensive city, which creates a housing crisis, which is exacerbating the homeless crisis in San Diego. Let's talk about your leadership on this issue.
Sure, absolutely. We do have an affordable housing crisis here in San Diego. In fact, if you ask about the number one issue why people fall into homelessness, it's lack of affordability. And so they fall onto the streets, especially when rents go up, and rents are very expensive here. So we at Father Joe's Villages focus tremendously on housing. In fact, about 40% of our intervention is placing individuals into permanent and affordable housing. All right, so shows you the extent of what we do. And of course, there's services that go along with this, because in order for people to retain their housing, their dwellings, they have to have the services that they're necessary, whether it's mental health services or substance use disorder services, whatever that is. We have a Turn in the Key initiative, whereby we'll be introducing 2,000 affordable housing units into the community during the next number of years. In fact, we just closed on a deal to purchase and refurbish motel in the South Bay area. It's going to add 83 permanent supportive housing units. Next week, we'll be closing financially on a groundbreaking that will have 14-story building, 407 units of housing as well, taking about 550 people off the street. So housing is extremely important.
Which means you're investing a lot of capital. How are you finding that capital to solve the housing crisis in San Diego for homeless folks? 90
to 95% of our funding is public funding. Various sources, whether it be from the state, it be local, county, city, municipality. So most of it is public funding. There's tax credits that are involved there. The capital stack is quite large, actually.
So you're finding the land, you're finding the capital, you're changing lives. How are you minimizing the risk of future homelessness for these clients of yours? We're minimizing it through our services. We need to make sure that in order for them to retain the housing, that they receive the services that they need that are holistic and are comprehensive to their specific needs. That's fantastic. Deacon Jim, in the last 10 years, your organization has taken 11,000 folks from homelessness to a home. So I congratulate you. Any closing thoughts for our audience? No, that's what it's all about. And, I mentioned public funding, but at the end of the day, the bulk of our funding is philanthropic. And so I would encourage your listeners to look at an organization like Father Joe's Villages, who is effective in what it's doing, that helps those not only who are on the streets, but the community at large.
Cloudcast 180. Powerful people, powerful stories, 180 seconds.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we're back with another edition of Spotlight on the Community. Joining us is Todd Lane, President and CEO of the California Coast Credit Union, chatting about the wonderful work California Coast has done since its inception. Are you the oldest credit union in San Diego County?
We are. We're almost 91 years old.
91 years old. My goodness, that's terrific. 1929, and I know it started really focused on local teachers.
It did.
And hasn't stopped.
Exactly. We were founded by 3 teachers, so I'm told. I wasn't obviously there 91 years ago.
You were not. Bob Scheid was. No, Bob Scheid was not. Okay.
Anyways, they had, a few dollars in capital, and they wanted a credit union to serve educators here in San Diego County.
Right.
And that's how they were started, San Diego Teachers Credit Union.
Oh, yeah. I remember I worked for San Diego City Schools 40 years ago, I believe. We started in 1980, and we used to walk down to that credit union, which was right next to the train man. You have to remember him, right on Park and El Cajon Boulevard, where everything converges. You know what I'm talking about on that. We were mentioning about all the wonderful grants that you folks have done and the loans, and that said, hey, listen, we're not going to be doing fees for several months here. We have access, all great stuff to make sure that your membership, 200,000 strong, just absolutely can survive through this very crazy era on this. But we had mentioned about, what happened in La Mesa, and certainly, very, very tragic, with the looting and all that business, and you guys were impacted by it. I thought you did a great job on TV, by the way.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. So, yeah, I mean, it was tragic. The people, a lot of people are hurting, Drew, and what happened in La Mesa, I think, has happened across the country, but specifically in that situation, we had a peaceful protest in La Mesa. And by the way, we have a branch in La Mesa. It's been there for 30 years. So
right.
We've been a big part of that community for a long time. But a peaceful protest at some point during the evening wasn't so peaceful. And I perhaps it was outsiders coming in, but it became violent at one point in time. And so we have a branch in the La Mesa Springs Shopping Center there. And, the Vons was set on fire. Several places were broken in, and our branch was as well. So happened to watch it on video that very evening, on Saturday evening. And, 20, 25 people came in the branch with baseball bats and rocks, that sort of thing, a weightlifting bar, and basically destroyed, vandalized the entire place. Anything electronic that they could swing a bat at, they did, and so did a lot of destruction, and they were in and out in 2.5 minutes. So that's pretty much what happened. But I happened to again, be monitoring the situation the entire evening and in touch, of course, with law enforcement and my team, and decided, I was going to be out at that branch first thing the next morning. I'm not going to ask any of my team to get out there and do work that I'm not willing to do myself. And I wanted to see exactly what happened in the aftermath. And so I happened to arrive at about 7 o'clock in the morning, the Sunday morning, the morning after, and much to my surprise, the entire parking lot was just filled with people and trash bags and trash cans and brooms and dustpans and anything that they could use to clean up things with. And I thought, wow, these businesses really are responding quickly. I don't have a cleaning crew out quite yet. And so I actually drove up, and there was a couple gentlemen cleaning up our ATM. Our ATM was just completely destroyed there. It's on the outside of the branch. And I went up to these gentlemen, and I thought they were part of our crew. And I said, thanks for coming out, guys. I'm sure our team has contacted you to get you out here. And they said, no, we live here in La Mesa. We're just out here to help. And it was amazing. They said, hey, what else do you need us to do? Because they were about done cleaning up the ATM. They had swept up glass. And, would you like me to run to Home Depot and get boards to board up your branch? Because all the windows had been broken in the branch. And I was amazed. And I said, well, we actually have, we had contacted our landlord out there, and they were in the process of bringing the lumber out to board up the place. But I said, give me a few minutes. I'm going to take some videos of the branch and some pictures, and then I'll most definitely take you up on your offer to help. And so by the time I was done taking pictures and video, probably had 20, 25 people standing outside the branch, and the glass doors were broken, and they said, we're ready to go. I said, come on in. And man, they went to work.
Wow.
And cleaned the entire place up. Took about an hour and a half. And it was just heartwarming. I just stood there in amazement. And they were all just out there to help in any way they can. And, didn't have to ask them to do anything. They knew exactly what to do. And once they were done with Cal Coast and our branch in La Mesa, they were on to the next business. And again, it was just an amazing sight. It sort of restores your faith in humanity in a situation like that. But so we knew that we had to give back. We knew that we had to redouble our efforts to contribute to this community, and we did. And this, as you mentioned earlier, this wasn't a one-time thing. We are all about the community. I said earlier, we were born out of the community, and we have a commitment and an obligation to give back to the community. And we always have. It's sort of shifted directions a little bit recently. A lot of focus on small businesses in particular, and small businesses of color in particular. And so that's what we did. But that's sort of the La Mesa story. We had a couple other branch situations, but nothing that significant.
Yeah, we're chatting with Todd Lynch, President and CEO of California Coast Credit Union, and that story is just heartwarming and all that, and it talks about the grit of the compassion, the empathy, which we need a lot more of in this country. That's an understatement of the world. And boy, they just did that. I love how you just laid that whole story out. And, that doesn't happen without, people actually have some, compassion for what you folks have done, California Coast, throughout the community on that. So how can our listeners support your efforts? What can we do?
So I think, Drew, what I would ask is that they look to our small businesses in San Diego County and Riverside County in particular. They are hurting. Many of them still haven't received their PPP funds from the federal government.
Right.
And there's some $80 billion left in those funds still yet to be distributed. So they've gone a long time without money. Now, I know they're starting to reopen, but they're going to be behind financially. And some of them can't even open their doors. So I would look towards small business relief fund. Now, we did a special fund with the City of San Diego that we partnered with the Mayor's Office, City of San Diego, and San Diego Grantmakers early on. Right. That fund has been closed off. We've raised $700,000, and in fact, The last sets of checks are going out today to many of the small businesses. But I would look towards the La Mesa Business Disaster Relief Fund. That fund has grown. We contributed $5,000. And then most recently, the Black Business Relief Grant Fund through the Central San Diego Black Business Chamber. I think that's a very, very important fund as well. Disproportionately, minority-owned businesses have been hurt by the pandemic and the shelter-in-place orders that we have. So I think we have to really help out and focus on our small businesses. They're, again, a huge part of the community. They are huge employers when you look at them. And our medium-sized and large businesses in San Diego County are doing quite well. And so I think I would look for individual contributions as well as challenging our business owners, our business executives and employees from some of these large businesses to open up and help out these smaller businesses.
No, I very well stated over here. If people want to get engaged and become members of Cal Coast, or they're looking for a loan, or God knows whatever they want to do, what's the best website to get a hold of you?
CalCoastCU.org
okay.
Is the best place to go. And you can do almost anything through electronic these days, so you can do it all online. And then once you join, become engaged in the credit union. Become vocal. Help us become a better credit union, a better community partner. Oftentimes when we're out in the community, whatever we're doing, whether it's cleaning up a beach or working with foster youth, whatever it happens to be, we invite our members quite often to join us in those efforts. Our entire Cal Coast team is a part of it. We used to have what we called a community relations department. Now the entire organization is community relations focused, and that's what we're all about. But we love when our members are a big part of that, and we've had some great partnerships with our members. I'm thinking back to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and Light the Night. We had 40 or 50 individuals that some of our members, some aren't, from a youth organization based in the Mira Mesa area. Just stuff like that. We'd love for our members to join us.
No, I think that's terrific. Todd Lane, it's always good chatting with you. The content you provide is just spectacular. Promise me we'll get you back on before too much grass goes under our feet. How's that sound?
I appreciate that, Drew. Thank you.
Absolutely. Todd Lane, he is the president and CEO of California Coast Credit Union. I'm Drew Schlossberg of Cloudcast Media. You've been listening to another edition of Spotlight on the Community.
Thank you for listening to a podcast from Cloudcast Media, the digital media home for leading local brands. When it comes to amplifying your brand, a Cloudcast-sponsored show offers unbeatable value. Learn more at cloudcast.us.